The number one selling product of its kind with over 20 years of research and innovation. Botox Cosmetic, out of botulinum toxin A, is a prescription medicine used to temporarily make moderate to severe frown lines, crow's feet, and forehead lines look better in adults.
Effects of Botox Cosmetic may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness may be a sign of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Don't receive Botox Cosmetic if you have a skin infection. Side effects may include allergic reactions, injection site pain, headache, eyebrow and eyelid drooping, and eyelid swelling. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Tell your doctor about medical history, muscle or nerve conditions including ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects. For full safety information, visit BotoxCosmetic.com or call 877-351-0300.
See for yourself at BotoxCosmetic.com.
And now, after years of planning, sweating, and going broke, here is the Boots and Whiskey Podcast with Jim Belisle.
I left the media.
Why they would give this man a podcast is anyone's guess.
Then there is what could only be a bizarre coincidence or something else.
Welcome to the Boots and Whiskey Podcast with Jim Belisle.
Fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life, son.
Country music and fine moonshine. Finally, a podcast that lets it all hang out.
Let's level with America.
Got your boots? Ready for some whiskey?
These boots are made for walking.
One of these days, these boots are gonna walk all over you.
And now, the Boots and Whiskey Podcast with Jim Belisle.
Hey everyone, Jim here, Boots and Whiskey Podcast. Welcome back to another episode of the show. Today we have Adam Hood on. For those of you that don't know who Adam Hood is, welcome to music. Adam's got some great tunes out. He's worked with some of the best. We talk a lot about his encounter and relationship with Miranda Lambert in this episode. So that's a good part. That's a real cool part. And he's this, I would say, and I'm probably talking out of turn, right? Where I say this, that Adam's a hidden gem. You know, he's one of those guys where he's there and he's super influential. I mean, I think he's super influential. I don't give a shit what you think. But I think he's super influential. You know, he's done work with Miranda. He's done work with Ella Langley. He's opened for Drake White. He's done all kinds of cool shit, right? And he flies just enough under the radar that you don't realize it's Adam Hood until you realize it's Adam Hood. If this doesn't make sense to you, don't mind me. The ADHD is real today. It's been a hell of a few weeks, so welcome. Just welcome to the shit show, right? Sit back, relax, enjoy the episode. I absolutely loved talking to Adam and getting to know him. You know, so much so that a few weeks ago, I don't know, I'm not telling you to go listen to another podcast, but Miranda was on this past weekend with Theo Vaughn, right? And that's one of my other favorite podcasts to listen to other than Rogan. And Miranda was talking about something they were doing and whatnot and like shouted at him out. And like, I was listening to it and like, I sent him a text. I was like, dude, this is awesome. Congratulations, you know, the whole 9 yards. Cause that's a huge podcast, right? You know, I mean, it's up there with the Boots and Whiskey podcast. So, you know, whatever. So take that for what you will. I thought that was just a fun little story. So you're welcome. What do we got going on? This week we got a bunch of shows. We have Charles Wesley Godwin on Thursday night at the Roadrunner in Boston. Friday, Shane Smith and the fucking Saints at the Palladium in Worcester. This past weekend we saw Red Ferrin. We're going to talk about that on the opposite side of this. So if it's your first time here, go check us out on our socials. Thank you so much for being here. If it's not your first time, welcome back. And sit back, relax, enjoy the episode, guys, and we will chat on the flip side. See you soon. Liz has told you, if she's told you anything.
Nothing.
But we're just going to shoot the shit.
Okay, cool.
That's it, man. We're going to find out about you, and this is your show. I'm just here to entertain.
Okay.
So,
that sounds fun.
first and foremost, thanks for being here, man.
Oh
Like,
yeah, man. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you asking me
oh
to do
yeah,
it.
I've been listening to your shit for a while, and I gotta say, man, you are. I say this in like the best way. You are very unique.
Huh, thank you.
When it comes to the country music umbrella, right?
Right.
Um, because like I hear, and please tell me if you think I'm totally off base, but I hear you, and you've got that very much Americana singer-songwriter feel.
Right.
Is that
Yeah.
would you say that that's accurate?
Yeah, absolutely. And because that's the thing. Okay, the guys that are my heroes, the guys that I sort of when I decided this is what I want to do, like meaning like, there was a time in my life, when I was in high school, I wanted to be Garth Brooks. You know what I mean? Like we all do. We start out, we want to be Brett Michaels or Garth Brooks or John Bon Jovi or whoever the hell it is we want to be.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You want to stand in a stadium with 60,000 people
Yeah,
listening to
yeah,
your
we all start
songs.
there. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Everybody starts there. So, and then, but when I sort of narrowed my focus was when I heard guys like John Hyatt. I heard Guy Clark, I heard Delbert McClinton, I heard those guys, and so that was those guys to me were Americana music before Americana music was a genre. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Like now that it's kind of become something, it's almost like it's not a cart before the horse thing, but like now that it has become a style and become a sort of a Grammy nomination. It's kind of become now. There's artists that fit themselves into it,
Right.
and so I appreciate that, but at the same time, it's also one of those things where like it's never what I shoot for. I just shoot for the parameters, like
Right.
the widest parameters of what I can get away with. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
if I can get the more rock side of the blues, the more blues side of country, and vice versa, then that's what I want to do. And still kind of stay true to who I am. I realize that I have that having unique abilities is also stuff where you can kind of limit yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And it's
absolutely.
it's not limitations on my abilities. I just, I'm not going to try to, I'm not going to make like a reggaeton album or anything like that. You know what I'm, you know what I mean? Like, there's no need. I mean, I don't have to be that guy.
Right. It's almost like, I say it all the time where like, growing up, country music was never a thing for me, right?
Yeah.
It was the Bon Jovis, it was the Skinners, AC/DC, the quote unquote classic rock, stuff. And
Right.
it wasn't until I got a little bit older where that singer-songwriter, for lack of a better term, Americana sound came into play. And then from there, for me, country music kind of took over. And I think a lot of it was based on sound. Like for me, the Americana sound was great when I was a teenager, or not, in college. And then like as I started to have kids and a family and all that, like the country part of it kind of took over a little more. I know that might sound weird, but like for me, that's just how the evolution went.
No, I completely agree. And, I kind of contributed to the fact that like, I remember when Copperhead Road was on classic rock radio. You know what I mean? And that's
Yeah.
and that was kind of the turning point for me. It was when you heard, for someone who kind of for all intents and purposes is a country artist. Not really, but you think about Guitar Town. Guitar Town was a rockabilly album. It was that was a country album. Copperhead Road was a song that is very country, but also was in that was on the radio where they were playing Bon Jovi and stuff
Right.
like that. You know what I mean? And so that was kind of the crossover for me.
Mm-hmm.
And man, and also, for me, I graduated from high school in '93, and that was Travis Tritt, Alan Jackson, Clint Black. All those guys were hat guys, but Travis was number one. He was from Georgia. Number two, he didn't wear a hat. Number three, played electric guitar. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that was kind of the thing. So I used to go see Travis. I bet I saw him a half a dozen times in high school. And I remember he played Copperhead Road live. He played Night Moves live. And so that was the kind of stuff that, like, you're talking about someone who was same thing. Someone who was on country radio playing songs that were on the classic rock stations.
Right.
And so that was what got me to go to Radio Shack and go, or, whatever, the Peaches music, and go pick up a live Steve Earle album. So yeah, I'm with you. It kind of, country radio was a different thing until that,
Right. Now, because you grew up in Texas, right? Am I correct in that?
Alabama.
Okay.
Yeah, Alabama.
Now,
I still live in Alabama, but that's the thing, I just don't play here,
yeah. I mean, is that weird to you? Like growing up somewhere and then having more success outside of where you're from?
I mean, it's not weird. I kind of knew it was going to be this way, I mean,
Yeah.
Alabama's not really the kind of place to where, like, artists don't succeed here.
Okay.
They don't. I mean, artists can be born and raised here, and they can learn how to play here. But they learn how to play. They go to Nashville, then they succeed. They learn how to play. They go to L.A., then they succeed. They learn how to do it. They don't. They don't learn how to play and come from Birmingham. It just.
Right.
I mean, it happens. I mean, it's
Sure.
every now and then. A band will pop up that, but it's the same thing. They're bands that they get started in Birmingham. They go play South by Southwest a couple of times. They get signed, and next thing they have some success. But yeah, I kind of knew it was going to be that way. I mean, I'd never seen it happen any other way.
Now, what is it about the Alabama scene that there's no? I'm not putting words in your mouth. This is me, but where there's no opportunity for a band to grow its roots, there and succeed there and go from there.
I don't know. I mean, I think it just has a lot to do with the fact that just kind of our social structure. I think that it's just not the kind of place where a lot of people go out on the weekends. I mean, people do, and I mean, I can't say that people don't come out and, spend money at our shows and stuff like that. I mean, I opened for the Steelwoods, Thursday night in Huntsville. But and I hate to say it like this, and as grateful as I am for the opportunity, I mean, I've been doing this for 30 years. I'm still opening for the Steelwoods. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and I'm still opening for Steelwoods in a place that I live 2 hours from. So
right, and not to not to pat you on the back too hard, but like opening for the Steelwoods with songs out there that I've done well with the artists you have songs out there with. I mean, like,
yeah,
having songs with like Miranda Lambert is I mean, it's kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to jump around all kinds of places with that, but like seeing we're talking about it, how does something like that come up for you?
With Miranda?
Yeah.
So that happened in Texas. So that was like 2004, maybe 2005, I think. It may have been, no, it was later than that. So I was playing in a town called New Braunfels, Texas. There was a Tuesday night show that they used to do on a radio station there. It was Ray Wiley Hubbard used to host this thing called, and he still does it. He hosts this thing called Roots and Branches that's on the Americana.
We want to give a big thank you to our friends over at Off the Rails here in Worcester, Massachusetts. You can find them at offtherailsworcester.com. They have a great restaurant, a great music venue. They have everything you would want to feel like in Nashville right here in Central Mass. If you're ever in the area, check out the restaurant, check out the music venue. Again, offtherailsworcester.com, 90 Commercial Street, Worcester. Check them out.
Station there, KMBT, and so they do it on Tuesday night. Well, it was our night to do it, and we were playing in a place called Tavern on the Green. Well, according to Miranda and her mother, their car had broken down, and so they needed to, they had to get it fixed. It was going to take a day to fix it, and so they just got a room at an Airbnb or whatever it was at the time. I guess it was just a little bed and breakfast. It was right next to the Tavern on the Green where we played, and he walked in to get a beer, and we were playing, and she introduced herself to me, and we started a friendship, which has changed my life, man. I mean, if I can say I was discovered by someone, it would be Miranda. I mean, she after that, her mother called me like 2 weeks after and was like, come play your birthday party. Let's get to know each other and all that stuff. She got me my first publishing deal. I mean, we're still having conversations. I just did shows with her what, 3 weekends ago. And I mean, we've known each other 20 years since then. So, I mean, that's kind of my just moment of discovery, you know?
Right. And like at that point, I mean, Miranda was a name, but was nowhere near,
Yeah, that
the
was like
name she
Crazy
is now.
Ex-Girlfriend album. Yeah, that was before. That was before. I mean, I guess White Liar was her first number one, and so that was off the Revolution album. And I think Revolution was the album that had White Liar on it, had House That Built Me on it. So that was when she kind of got radio success.
Yeah.
But when I met her, that was Crazy Ex-Girlfriend years. So the album before that. So yeah, no, she was selling out, the bigger theaters, but by no means who she is now.
Yeah. Now with your relationship with her, how much of that is a business and how much of it is personal?
That's the cool thing about her, and that's the cool thing about music. Just sort of being in the business of music, like it's always business, but it's never business. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
I get that.
because you're talking about songs, and I mean,
right.
You just love what you do, and hey, I love this. I like this song that you wrote. I want to see if I can tell people about it.
Right.
I think you've been kind of doing these things happening here. I wonder if we could do some shows together. You know what I mean? And so there's business, and that's kind of why that's kind of why artists have agents, and have management and stuff like that to kind of really handle it, to handle the paperwork and the administration that that keeps us from having to make it a business. And
right.
But granted, but we and again, you kind of come to that understanding. You understand that she's just trying to run a business. Where same thing with us. We're just trying to get down the road ourselves.
So in the last, what was life like and career wise like for you before that interaction? And then I guess how has things changed since that interaction? Interaction.
It's kind of one of those things where I can't really say like save the Grand Ole Opry. I mean, like there wasn't a definitive moment for me. It was always, everything's kind of it's all a process, and it's all like like my meeting her was one thing that was a great experience. But meeting her leads to going up to Nashville and having meetings with people like Frank Liddell, who were, the guy she introduced me to, who signed me to a publishing deal. Then you're talking about a 7-year process of learning how to write songs like that, and going from a guy that just, and the years before that, like I had gone to LA and made a record, like that was the thing. Like I had just finished the record in LA when I met Miranda. So it's all, and I mean, I met Pete Anderson, and Pete was the guy that got me to LA and produced that record. And that got me to Miranda, got me to Nashville. And those years, got me to the point where I, wrote songs with people like Stapleton that got cut and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like it's all been, it was never a definitive, there's never been a definitive moment that like everything changed. Nothing's been that way. It's all kind of,
okay.
It's all kind of, you sort of, you kind of learn, and I like it like that. I feel like it's the kind of thing that has kind of helped me. It's allowed me to keep my sanity and still grow. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
Because it's like, it's never been a time where like this happened and everything changed. It's been like this happened. It's a small thing that happened. Okay, well, you have to learn how to kind of take responsibility and learn how to kind of live in this little time for a little while. Then you kind of have to make some adjustments and do this, that, and the other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's been a slower burn, which I hoped would happen anyway. And it's been manageable. I mean, I've been, like I said, I mean, with the exception of just living in bars and life happened and stuff like that. I've been able to kind of do it at my own speed,
Yeah. Now you had mentioned something, and I heard it, and it's very interesting. But you had said that it was like a 7-year, learning of how to write a song. What did you mean by that? What do you mean by that?
Well, it's not necessarily how to write a song. It's kind of how to. You have to learn how to show up at 10 o'clock, shake hands with the person, and write a song that's good enough for someone who has a $1 million record deal to record, and you know what I mean. And so, and also there's a whole songwriting is such an interesting thing just because of the fact that you start out you start out thinking you're going to change the whole world, and I've been doing this for a long time, and it started out wanting to change the world, and now I just want to be able to write songs that my 6-year-old, my 8-year-old can relate to. You know what I mean? Like, because you realize how difficult it is. The simplicity, simplifying things to make things enjoyable for a universal group of people is not dumbing it down, man. I mean, it's really, it's kind of broadening the strokes to where, like, and that's the thing, it's funny because, like, living in Alabama, you want, if you write a song for Alabama fans, you're going to alienate a bunch of Auburn fans, and vice versa. You know what I mean? So it's you know what I mean? And so the trick is, to sort of, to just kind of write things that are simple enough for everyone to understand, but still poignant enough and heartfelt enough to be the kind of thing that you want to be able to say every night. That's a challenge, man. And I'm still working at it. And then you have to learn the process of doing that with another person that may not care about any of that kind of stuff, and still try to make it productive. How do you write a song with somebody that doesn't give a crap about any of that stuff and not walk out of the room? You know what I mean? And just be a decent human being and know I got a job to do today, and that this is the person I got to do my job with. We don't see eye to eye, but let's kind of put our differences aside and just make something enjoyable for 2.5 minutes for someone else. You know what I mean?
Right. Imagine if we could all have that mindset about everything.
Yeah. And, granted, this is, that mindset is the best case scenario.
Right.
I mean, it don't always feel that way, but it's always the goal and it's always the plan. But yeah, I mean, that's the whole learning how to write songs. I remember, Townes Van Zandt said he was still trying to write the perfect song. And I thought, man, he said that around the end of his life, and I mean, you think about a guy that's all he ever did, and so for him to be, you know what I mean? Like, that's it. I mean, that's all he ever did. And so, for it's just still to be an attainable goal to him there's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah. It's funny. Like, we've talked to a lot of people on this show, like a lot. And, I hear about it all the time about singers getting into rooms and writing and all that sort of thing. And it's, I've thought about it, but never kind of wondered about it until you kind of like mentioned it, where, you ever have like something you've written or been in a room with somebody that's written and, again, not to say to dumb it down, but like, I guess lack of a better term, like, make it a little more easier to digest, even though, like, let's say like the wording has been like fantastic, right?
Yeah.
But you're like, I can't say these words because it's going to throw people for a loop. You know what I mean? Like, it's almost...
Yeah, it happens all the time. And that's the thing. Like, I realize that more often now than not, because especially going back to older songs and taking them to places like, okay, case in point, like when I was, on the road with Drake White in February, and the shows I did with Miranda, like they were all New York State shows, right? Okay, so like upstate New York proper. They don't understand songs like Bayou Girl. And it's not that they don't understand. They're not idiots. You know what I mean? They understand those kind of things, but that's not a relatable term to those folks. That may be my favorite song. Bayou Girl actually is one of my favorite songs. I didn't write it, but it was just... It's one of the only songs I've ever recorded that I didn't have anything to do with the writing process of it. So that makes it a favorite, and so it's hard to not play that song acoustic. However, it doesn't connect with people in upstate New York and shouldn't be expected to. And so, like, having that understanding, it's a reality. And also, I for so long, just because of the fact that we've been road warriors forever, that, you just, I don't know, you just kind of get to the point where you kind of get in your feels about when you're, right there between Vicksburg and that area, right, just wherever you are in Alabama or wherever you are just in the nation, and you just kind of get in your feels about stuff, and you're like, okay, there you start to get rhyming lines with Birmingham, or rhyming lines with, Louisville or whatever it may be, and you want to put those songs in there, and that's cool. It's really cool to do that. But I also kind of, that's the thing. I sort of I watch how it engages with people in different regions, and it's just like a disconnect, and so you kind of take that back with you and go, okay, all right, I probably ought to put that baby to bed for a couple of tunes, you know.
It's funny you say that because it's like, we're in New England, right? I'm in Massachusetts,
Yeah.
and I've always said it where it's like some things you hear in country music, and it's like, I look around in a crowd and I laugh to myself because I'm so involved in it, right? And I'm like, you fucking idiots don't know any of this means. Like, you just like it because it
Right.
sounds good, right? When somebody's talking about a holler, it's like, we don't have that. You don't know what that is. You know what I mean?
Right.
Um, but like, I think there's a I'm gonna totally fuck this up, but a
Yeah.
there's there's a universal feeling with music. My God, I
Yeah.
can't talk.
There you go.
That regardless, I think, of where you are, especially when it comes to country music, it's very relatable.
Yeah. And that's what you hope. You know what I mean? Like and I feel that way a lot. I kind of hope that people can get past the geography of it and understand kind of the sentiment of it more than anything. I mean, because at the end of the day,
Right.
I mean, it's just kind of really, just those songs are basically just my attack on writing about just missing my family. You know what I mean? Just like, man,
Right.
God, dog, I'm sick of driving.
Hey guys, just wanted to remind you of our friends over at the DCU Center here in beautiful downtown Worcester, Massachusetts. The DCU Center has everything. We've seen shows there. We've seen other different forms of entertainment there. They have hockey. They have all kinds of cool stuff. If you're in the Central Mass area, it is the place to go. Check them out. I can't say anything better about these guys. They've been a huge fan of ours. We're a huge fan of theirs. So thank you so much to the DCU Center for everything. Check them out. DCU Center, Worcester, Massachusetts. Cheers.
And you know what I mean? Like, and so it just those are the ideas. And you want to be able to say that in a place that makes enough sense to where the geography is just it's just the way to paint the picture. You know what I mean? It's just setup. Yeah, you know exactly what I'm saying.
I do.
And so yeah,
I do. And it's funny though, because it's like knowing, this sounds arrogant, but like knowing what I know about country music and how it works, and you turn on the radio and like that Luke Bryan, Luke Combs, Miranda Lambert, for just to throw out some names, like that I know that those people aren't. That's not a Luke Combs by himself tune, right?
Right.
And I use Luke all the time because I started listening to Luke early on in his career, and he kind of like helped me get to where I am, when it comes to country music.
Interesting.
And I've talked to a lot of people that have written for him, Ray Fulcher, Drew Parker, the list goes on. And you listen to some songs from these big artists, right, early in their career, to like the songs they put out now, and you can see and hear how different they are. Like when somebody like Miranda is starting out and she writes she puts out a song like House That Builds Me, like you can understand that. Everybody has that sort of moment in their lives, right? But then, her or somebody else gets to a level of like superstardom and then has a song out about working 9 to 5, and it's like, give me a fucking break.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, and it's interesting because she's kind of always been an exception to the rule with that kind of stuff. She's kind of kept herself in a she's kind of kept herself off a pedestal. You know what I mean? For the most part, as good as she can. You know what I mean? But man, and Combs is a great example of it too, man. You talk about somebody who's kind of at the epitome of like, I mean, that dude's. I mean, these are stadiums, man. These are stadiums. I mean, this is Garth Brooks, and even Garth Brooks was like that. I mean, like it was just kind of this normalcy that they. I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they do it. It's just I don't know. I don't know how they do it.
Let me ask you this. But speaking of stadiums and playing in a stadium and whatnot, forget about what you do for a living, right? As a fan, right? Do you feel like country music belongs in a stadium of 60,000 people?
I don't know. I mean, I guess I kind of come from a time that, like, okay, there's but they always did it. Like Haggard and those guys, they played stadiums too. I mean, like Don Williams played big rooms and he sat down all the time. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like there were, and so you never think that it does belong there until you see it there, and you go, okay, this I see it. This works. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I think there are theatrics involved that kind of, I don't know, it may or may not make sense, but at the same time, like, it still comes across. You know what I mean? I think if you shoot for it, I think you're going to miss the mark. But I think if you can, if it gets there and you can embrace it, then more power to you.
It's funny because I go back and forth with it, and that's why I asked. Because I equate it to like stand-up comedy because I love stand-up comedy, right? But I can't see stand-up in an arena. I can't,
And
because
they do it all the time, dude.
all the time.
That's the craziest thing to me too. I feel the same way because, like, it's funny you talk about that because across the country, I kind of see, if we're playing a casino or we're playing like the club in a certain town and you pass by like the big venues and you see the lineup for the month, like I'd say there are more comedians than there are artists, like musicians that go to these big venues, and like to me, that's really impressive, and I mean, it just goes to show you. I mean, that guy, or girl, that person can stand up there and make somebody laugh. They can do it all by themselves in front of a lot of people, man. It's pretty impressive. There's a lot of power to that.
Yeah, I guess my argument was always like, you just lose something. Like if, comedy, maybe it's just my bias, but like comedy and country music are just such personal, I mean, to me, such personal art forms that it's like, I'd rather, I shit on the big radio guys all the time because it's fun, it's easy to do, and it gets clicks, right? But like, I tease Luke Bryan all the time, but I would rather see Luke Bryan sing "Drink a Beer" with 1,000 people rather than 60.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's one of those songs that there's just an impact that, I think you get a better, you might lose if you're in the nosebleeds rather than if you're within 100 feet.
Yeah, I agree. And it's funny that it does, that it's funny the intention that it is like that, but then again, I mean, man, I mean, you ask the person that sits in the nosebleeds, and that's kind of the charm to it. Like, that if the artist that's on stage is good at what they're doing, they're good at making that person in the nosebleeds feel that way. You know what I mean? And so I don't know. There's an art form to it. Like I said, it's just never it's so far from my world. You know what I mean? It's just so far from my world that it's just kind of hard to put my head in that space.
Yeah. So for what you are doing, currently, in the past, and the future, like what are some for you, your personal highlights that have come through that you're like, holy shit, I can't believe I did this?
I mean, I keep on with it, but that whole Grand Ole Opry thing was pretty awesome. I mean, that was great. I had a really good year this year. Okay, so the Opry, that was last year. Well, that's not true. So we did it October. What was it? Oh man, I'm getting old. So I want to say that we did it 2022 or 2023. Anyway, whatever. So we did it in October. Then we came back and did it again in February. And that kind of that was a pinnacle moment. I'd say, that was one of those things to where, like, that was the thing that when, we were talking about definable moments, like that was the time when, like, people started asking me different questions. You know what I mean? Like, people started, when introductions came, like that was one of the things that they started talking about. Like that, it's kind of like, you sort of, when when you're representative of a record label or something like that, when you like Grammy nominations, things like that, like those are things that kind of, they precede your introductions. You know what I'm saying? Like that was a moment that happened. So
Right.
that was really, and then it was that, and like I said, I started this year out on the road with Drake White, and then we did some Red Clay Strays shows, which, I mean, those guys are doing what they're doing now, which is amazing. And then we did some Blackberry Smoke dates, which I got a song on that record. Got some Cody Jinks cuts, which is great for me, and then the Miranda stuff happened. So we've had this has been a good year for me to sort of be able to go, and that's kind of why we did like the Steelwood show and stuff. Man, I've known Wes and those guys for a long time. I mean, I knew Rowdy pretty well, back before the Steelwoods existed, and so I have a relationship with those guys in that band, and it's worth it for me to be a part of, and then just to go in and be physically to be support for people that I support,
Right.
and by doing that, it kind of supports us too. It puts us in front of brand new audiences, and this has been a great year.
Hey everyone, as always, I wanted to just tell you about our friends over at The Bar Book. The Bar Book is a mobile app designed to eliminate the guesswork when looking for a great drink and introduce users to new brands that have the flavors they love, regardless of price or name recognition. How badass is that, guys? In the same way music sharing apps introduce you to new songs, the Bar Book will give you personalized drink recommendations based on the flavors you love. That's freaking cool. The Bar Book is a veteran-owned brand founded by 2 U.S. Army veterans, Mike and Dolly, and they have a lot going on with this cool new app, guys. Check it out. We had Mike on the show not too long ago. You can check them out at thebarbook.co. You can follow them on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all at The Bar Book. Rate your favorite beer, spirits, cocktails, and discover new ones that match your flavor profile, all on The Bar Book. Go download it. Love having these guys as friends. Check it out. Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Year for that. It's been a great year for that.
Yeah. It's funny. I got to see Blackberry for the first time this year, not too long ago. They came through and opened up for Whiskey Myers.
Mm-hmm.
And, I said to a friend of mine that came with me, I was like, this band is incredible. I go, but like, it's almost like they're 40 years too late. Not too late in like a bad sense, but like if they would have come out in the 70s, like holy shit.
Skynyrd and the Stones and guys like that were around,
right. Like they'd be at the top of everybody's conversation. I mean, not that they're not now, but like what? It was like being in a time capsule.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like now they're one of very few bands doing that, which at that period of time they would have been one of a lot of bands that were doing it. You know what I mean?
True.
So that's kind of the beauty in what they do. I think it's great. I mean, and Charlie and I grew up really close to each other. We grew, and ironically we didn't know each other until we started the Bad Days. But we had met a time or two, and I did some shows. We'd opened for them like 2017 maybe. But then we did that Bad Days Better record in 2020, and that was Charlie and Britt Richard came and played on that record, and so that was really when I got to know Charlie, and he and I, I'm from Opelika and he's from Valley, and those two school 15 minutes from each other. He graduated a year before I did. We never knew each other. You know what I mean?
Wow.
It's just interesting how closely we grew up. I mean, and man, and I go back and listen to a lot of the songs that they have, and it's all this geography of like, I know where that road is. That's where my grandparents lived. You know what I mean? Like it's all this kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So it's really, and they're just, I don't know. I have getting to know them. I have a lot more respect for them. Not that I didn't have respect for them, but I kind of had a broad scope of respect for what they do. But now I can really appreciate it as somebody who grew up in the place where they grew up.
Yeah, it's funny. We've been talking about some of these bands and artists that come out of your neck of the woods, right? That are finally making their way up this way, and getting a bigger and bigger crowd every time they come. The few times I've seen Whiskey Myers, it was they come up here and they play in a small room, and then it's a bigger room, and then it's a bigger room, and it's like it's great to see. Because 10 years ago, Whiskey Myers, regardless of how well they were doing in Texas 10 years ago, they wouldn't have been able to sell 100 tickets up here.
I know, and that's kind of the place that we're at. It's been it's been such a great year to do that. And that was the thing with that tour with Drake. That was February to May, and it was all East Coast. It was all East Coast.
Yeah.
And
So you were here and I missed you.
Oh, I know. See, I know. And so, and that we just got to get back up there, and we just got to, and we have a great band, and I'm proud of what we're doing, and it's just a matter of doing exactly that. Because the cool thing is, here's the cool thing about the region that you live in, is that it works, and it does not like
somehow,
that's
some
the
way
thing.
it works.
Let me tell you something, man. You can build. I've been building in the state I live in all my life, and we're still building. We're still pouring concrete.
Right.
All these years later, you can go up to the region that you live in. You can play 3 times, and you can start drawing. You know what I mean? Like you're talking about decades as opposed to 18 months. You know what I'm saying? And so it's it takes a little bit of effort, and it takes a little bit of kind of, all right, we're just going to go up there, and it's going to suck. It's going to suck twice.
Yeah.
And but that's fine. It's going to suck twice, and we'll be glad it sucked twice the third time. And I mean, you can almost set your watch to it. So, I mean, kudos to you and to the area and the region and the whole East Coast, man. And that's something that we haven't had the opportunity to do for a while because, number one, because of the fact that because of this year, we've been able to go in as support for someone. So it's not just a cold walking into the Pizza Hut trying to get a gig. You know what I mean? So we have an introduction. And we also, with the band is great. And, and I'm in a different place, I mean, as far as like musically, I'm in a different place. We have the music to entertain people that way. My family we're a little bit more stable. I mean, my kids are 8 and 6, but that's my wife does everything besides if she could sing, I wouldn't exist. But she does everything else. And then my kids, they understand, they know what I do for a living. They don't want me to be gone, but I'm never gone for a month. I'm gone for at most I'm gone for a week. And then I'm home. And when I'm home, I mean, that's it. But you got me. I'm yours. I'm doing homework with you. I'm taking you to ballet. We're going to cheer. We're doing all that stuff. You know what I mean? So life is manageable enough now to where we can kind of go in there and sort of just, I can go in there and put the time and the effort and the investment into new regions and new markets and it not just, I not lose my mind doing it. You know what I mean? Because there was a time when things were so unstable just in life and everything that we're like, shoot, man, I couldn't go to Charlotte and lose. I'd lose my mind. I'd be like, I'd go crazy. So I had to have like this. I had to have this kind of this bubble of stimulation for a while, and I think we're in a different place now.
Now, what kind of team do you have behind you to help you with that sort of thing?
I've got a great band. I have my wife. I have a good agent that kind of we're not with a major agency, which is kind of to our benefit. Just because I can get somebody on the phone, and we can kind of plan and come up with some strategies. I mean, and then management is we're making some changes that are good. And again, like I said, it's just, but at the end of the day, like, we kind of understand our social media structure. The guys in the band are willing to kind of do more than just, I mean, my bass player kind of helps me with tour management and advances shows and things like that. So we're all in it, So I mean, as far as the team goes, I think we got a pretty good one.
Yeah. And so the band you have now, how long has this band been a cohesive unit together?
We put this together going into Bad Days. Well, when the Bad Days Better was released, so that was 2022, September of 2022. So we just over 2 years. However, Justin Johnson, the guy that plays bass with me and sings, I mean, I recorded my first EP in his basement. That was 2003. So I mean, I've known Justin a long time, and so I mean, but and he and I, we traveled together, when we were. First, I mean, Justin was playing with me when I met Miranda, so there was that. But at the same time, we've just kind of been on and off, like I said, saying, that he's had kids in life and me too. And so, but this has been probably the most balanced it's been.
Yeah. It's funny. It's funny talking to you guys because it's like, the music industry and bands and stuff, it's really like you know, romantic relationships, you know, where it's like you
Yeah,
may have a falling out and time goes by and like you get back together, you know. And I'm not
yeah,
saying
I know.
that's what happened with you. I just, you know, it's those kind of continuous
Oh, it's
stories where
very much what happened with me. Absolutely. And you just, man, guys get tired of it. You know what I mean? Like, we get that. I get that way too. I just get to this point where I like, man, I can't do this anymore. And then you take a break for about a week. Sometimes you take a break for a year. Sometimes you take a break for a week, but at the same, I kind of laugh, joke about my buddy Brent Cobb. Like everybody that's in his life is a cousin. You know what I mean? Like he's got cousins, working. They all work together. The Cobbs are all kind of working together and doing stuff together. And it's, same thing. You just kind of surround yourself with people that you love and trust,
it's funny you mentioned Brent because like going into this podcast, like I had like a list of like dream interviews,
Mm.
right? And he is on that list of like
Yeah.
dream interviews because of just. So I think I would be totally remiss if I didn't mention our friends over at 10thwhiskey.com. That's 10th Mountain Whiskey and Spirit Company. They're out of Vail, Colorado. Great friends of ours. We don't like bourbon here at the Boots and Whiskey podcast, and they make the absolute best bourbon I've ever tasted in my entire life. And I'm not saying that because they've been great to us. They have the best bourbon, the best rye I've ever tasted in my entire life. So check them out, 10thwhiskey.com. Tell them the Boots and Whiskey podcast sent you. Cheers. Because of not even necessarily his own music, but like the fingerprint that he's had on so many other artists out there.
Yeah.
That you don't even realize, like if you're just a regular guy.
Yeah. Well, and that was the thing. So he and I had been at Carnival, the publishing house. I'd been at Carnival for a year when I was the first guy in Nashville Brent wrote with, you know what I mean? So
oh, wow.
He and I've had a long relationship for a long time. And it was fun then though. I mean, not to say that there was that little time from like 2009 to about 2014 when we were all we were kind of in there at the same publishing house together and really kind of grinding. It was good. I feel like, it really defined a sound for a lot of us. And man, I have a really close relationship with Brent. He's a really good friend and somebody that he's producing the singles that I put out. He produced the last record that I made. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
He holds a lot of water in my career,
Yeah, he's a real unsung hero.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
I mean, he's, a lot of people, if you were to say Brent Cobb, they'd be like, who the hell are you talking about? But like, if you're in the industry and know what's going on, like you say Brent Cobb and everybody's like stops,
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And rightfully so. I mean, he's the same thing, he's really unique. He works really hard at it and kind of understands his responsibility. He's got pretty solid vision for what he wants to do,
yeah. Now, speaking of having an imprint in things, like you had mentioned it a little while ago, and I wanted to get back to it because I love making artists uncomfortable talking about things they've done. Because
Okay.
you know how artists are. They're like, I don't want to, they're like, I'm gonna squirm in my seat, even though I did this really cool thing. I don't want to talk about it. But you had mentioned it, like having cuts with, some major artists. Like, what is that like?
Man, it's surreal, and a lot of it has to do with like it just kind of depends on how it happens. You know what I mean? Like it's
sure.
when it's you writing a song with the artist, it creates a relationship between you and that artist more so than the song. You know what I mean? And so that's a really special thing. You know what I mean? But and then there's the other times when other people find songs of yours that they want to record, and that's equally as special. I don't feel like, and I feel like that it's harder to develop relationship with the people that record those songs when it's like that. That's not a bad thing. It's just it's just what it is. You know what I mean? So but it still happens. But when you actually go into it, like you sit down and you write the song with the person, you and that person, you shake hands, you agree that this is the song it is, and they either cut the song or they don't. When they do, that's a special feeling. You know what I mean? That's sort of it's a nice feeling of acceptance. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's what I've always wanted to do. I love it. I mean, but the finishing of the song is the reward, and then because of the fact that I make my own records, I've got songs with other artists that I recorded, because
Right.
the song sort of lend itself to what I do more than that person.
Now, what about in those moments where it's like, I'll say a radio artist, as much as I hate to differentiate because I think it's stupid, but like a Stapleton, right? Let's just
Right.
say, right? Stapleton takes one of your songs, cuts it, and it's a huge hit, right? Does a part of you go, son of a bitch? That's my fucking song.
Sometimes, sometimes, I guess it just kind of depends. It really depends
I
on the
guess when the
song.
check comes in, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Well, the checks are smaller than they used to be. That's the sad part about it. You know what I mean? So I think that's kind of that's its own. It's just, boy, that's its own story. Just the fact that you know what I mean, like the days of driving around a pickup truck that says Redneck Yacht Club on it are over. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we just you're lucky to make payments on your truck with your with your draw these days.
Really?
But yeah, it's cut the income in half. Yeah,
That's
way more than that. Yeah, it's wild. It's wild, and I'm probably a terrible person to be speaking for those kind of things because I don't live in Nashville. I'm not doing it every day. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I'm not watching just the whole infrastructure change because of the fact that I didn't put I didn't put all my eggs in that basket. I put enough eggs in that basket to where the changes hurt, but at the same time, like the money's not where it used to be.
Now, do you ever sit back and at this point in your life, right, and say, shit, I should have spent more time in Nashville, or I should have spent more time in LA, or I should have, woulda, coulda, shoulda?
Yeah, you can. I can. I try not to, just because I think it's a game that
It's a
it
slippery
never ends
slope.
well. Yeah, it never ends well. And also, I know the reason why I made the decisions that I made were for the right reasons. We've stayed in Alabama because this is the place we want to raise our kids.
Yeah.
I can't. I don't. We never wanted to move to a place. We just didn't think that was the smartest thing to do for our children, and we talk about it all the time. It would be a whole lot easier on me to live in Texas if we play in Texas every weekend. It would be a whole lot easier to do that. But it would not be easier on my wife having to with no family support around, having to take care of the kids while I'm on the road. It would not be easier on the kids to sort of have, for all intents and purposes, you have two parents, but you have a single parent home. You know what I mean? Like, only see dad a few days a week, so at least we have grandparents and, my mom's, we live, but my wife's family is here where we live. And so they see her side of the family a lot. And my mom's pretty close, so it's the extended family nucleus basically is what we're working with to try to do the best thing for our kids. And so I don't have any regrets with any decision that I've made, knowing that that's why I've done it. You know what I mean?
Dude, that is probably the greatest answer to that I have ever heard in my entire life.
Good, thanks. It's true. I just wanted it to be easier for them.
Right.
And there's no perfect scenario,
Sure.
That's the thing I tell them all the time. I'm like, man, y'all see me more than I saw my dad. And my dad was a forester. But at the same time, my dad he worked in the timber industry, but he was gone at 6:30 in the morning, And so, and there weren't Mondays off. There weren't Tuesdays off. That didn't happen. He was he was like 6:30 to 4, you know what I mean? And so, and he did that all his life,
Right. And then by the time he gets home, he's exhausted.
Yeah, he comes home. My dad was so interesting, man. He was somebody that could come home from work. He took a 20-minute nap and never set an alarm, but never missed a nap. It was so strange, man.
Yeah, it's funny because I have 3 boys, right? And doing this, I'm sure I could pack up and move to Nashville in this podcast, everything we're doing would probably skyrocket.
Sure.
More than it already has. But like
Right.
that's exactly it. Everybody's here. I can't. Regardless of anything, like I can't just go. Like that's insane.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, so and in doing that, I'm sure you can relate to the fact that like it just kind of really makes you a lot more grateful for every kind of thing that you get. You know what I mean? You
Oh,
don't
absolutely.
necessarily feel like, because I mean that's the thing when we were spending more time in Nashville, I couldn't enjoy the, it's like every time I get a song on hold, it'd be like, well, it didn't get cut. Every time you get a song cut, it's like, well, it wasn't a single. And every time it's a single, well, it's not a number one, so, and I don't feel like I
Yeah.
feel that way anymore. I mean, I'm just glad anybody's listening. I'm just glad I get to write the songs I get to write, so yeah,
Yeah.
it just makes it better that way.
Yeah. If you would have talked to me a year ago, like I was, and I still am, chasing a dream, right?
Sure.
But with every episode release, it was like, all right, well, why didn't it do the numbers that the previous one did, or this
Yeah.
person or that? And it's like, I was so caught up with what wasn't happening, like I stopped being grateful for what was happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It's,
that's a
yeah,
bitter
it's,
pill to swallow once you realize, you've already put it in your mouth.
yeah, that's true. You're right. I mean, it's just it's easier. It's easier just to be on the positive side of it. Sure makes you
Yeah,
happier that way.
absolutely. So what do you got coming up music wise? I know you've released some stuff this year and all that, but what's coming up? I mean, now that 2024 is almost over, I can't believe it. What's going on with, the early parts of next year?
I don't know. Good question, and I think we're still trying to figure that out too. Because that's sort of been my game. Like I release an album, and then that's kind of the the positive and the negative to the whole singles world. I've really enjoyed the singles. I've enjoyed I've enjoyed it because of the fact that I like putting out a song, and that song gets the attention that it deserves. And now, granted,
Sure.
it has to be a song that deserves the attention that it's going to get. You know what I
Right.
mean? But
Right.
but if I feel confident enough for it to do that, that's what I want. I like that because when you put out an album, the last couple of times we've done it, it's like you have your singles that lead up to it, you have your album release, and then you're kind of done. Which it used to not be that way, and so there's a half a dozen songs that kind of go pretty much unheard, because people just they don't listen through like they used to, and
Right.
so that's changing. That's kind of changing our approach to things, and so in doing that, we're still trying to figure things out. I mean, I don't have plans to make a record right now, which is a little scary, but I still have plenty of songs and I still have
Right.
plenty of writing. So, the good news is if something happens, if the pendulum swings and we do decide to make a record, I got plenty of opportunity to go that way. You know what I mean? If we decide to keep putting singles out, I got plenty of opportunity to go that way too. So as far as the music goes, I'm always creating, and that's what matters. You know what I mean? And so now it's just trying to navigate through that and figure it out, and that's kind of what we're doing, and we really haven't made any definitive decisions on that yet, and I don't know.
Nice.
You know what I mean? It's really like I said, I'm not scared just because of the fact that I know I have material to service whatever plan we have, but it's kind of tough to make a plan right now.
Yeah. Hey, man, whatever's working for you, that's just what you do.
Yeah, we got to make a decision one of these days, though. We got to do something. We
Yeah.
got to figure out what we're going to do. We got to do it.
So, again, I can't thank you enough for coming on and shooting the breeze and telling your story and all that. It's been super fascinating. It's to have somebody like you on this show is like a huge honor for me. So thank you so much.
Oh man, my pleasure. It's been an honor to talk to you about it too. I can talk about this stuff all day. And that's the thing, I love my job. I feel like I've been blessed beyond measure, and I dig what I do, and I'm thankful for every moment that I get, and I know that there are people that are trying to figure out how to navigate through this stuff, and I feel like these conversations you and I get this all the time, when these are released, I mean, I feel like these conversations that you and I have really help save some people some steps, man. And man, if I can do that, if I can help, then that's how I serve,
Yeah, absolutely. Now, before we go, because we are, obviously the Boots and Whiskey podcast, we got to talk about boots and we got to talk about whiskey real quick.
Okay.
So, do you have a pair of boots or a boot brand that you prefer, and do you have a brand of whiskey you prefer?
So, brand of boots, I have a pair of Lucchese's that I love. I also, man, I've never had. I've never had a loyalty to any. I have a pair of Justin boots that I had since high school that I still wear every now and then. And then, but I have a pair of Lucchese's that Miranda gave me that I've been wearing pretty consistently. Whiskey, I don't drink anymore, and so but Maker's Mark, but I guess that's bourbon though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all the same. Well,
yeah,
don't tell some people that.
Yeah, Maker's Mark was always my drug of choice.
Nice.
Yeah,
nice. All right. So, how can people find you, follow you, stay up to date with what you're doing?
Everything is available on the website. AdamHood.com is the best way to do it. I mean, you can go on there. You can see tour dates. All our merch is on there. We keep that stuff updated. We keep our tour dates updated. Links to all the socials, and we're on Instagram and Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, all that stuff. And like I said, my wife and I handle it. So I mean, we're nice. pretty easy and pretty accessible. But yeah, I mean, I'm not hard to find. I try to keep myself out there.
Nice. Well, keep going, Adam. You're killing it. We absolutely love what you're doing. And again, thank you so much for being on and taking the time.
Man, my pleasure. Thank you guys for having me. I enjoyed it. It's good to
talk
to you.
Anytime, man. And then next time you're up here, you're gonna let us. Well, we'll keep track, but you're gonna let us know so that we can.
Yeah, I got your number, and so I bet that most definitely will. Yeah, I'll reach out to you next time when we get some more shows there.
Cool. Sounds good. Well, we'll see you soon, bud.
All right. See you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, there you have it. Our conversation with Adam Hood. Adam, again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for taking the time and telling us your story a little bit, and really getting to know you as a person. Your music's great. Your stories are great. It means the world that you're a friend. So thank you for that. And like I said at the beginning of the episode, right? Red Ferrin, we saw him at Off the Rails this past weekend. Dude, if you don't know who Red Ferrin is, I think he's got it. I mean, what do I know, right? I'm just a fucking podcaster. But entertaining. The thing I didn't understand, right? And if you've seen Red Ferrin on this old Number 7 tour, you'll know what I'm talking about. But he comes out with just a drummer and the song tracks. Now I know, right? I know it's expensive to pay for a tour, the whole 9 yards, right? And like he's doing it, he sang the songs. There was no lip syncing, none of that bullshit. He was actually singing, but to a track, right? Again, I totally understand it. I respect it. I appreciate it. I just didn't understand why a drummer, right? And like I was a drummer for a while. I didn't understand why a drummer and not like a guitar player or, another, I guess the drums fill it up, right? I guess I just answered my fucking question. But a big thank you to our friends at Off the Rails for having us out. We had an absolute blast. It was great meeting Red Ferrin as well after the show. Here's a fun fact, and I'll probably get shit for this, but his actual name is Blake. You're welcome. So, thanks for coming in and checking us out today. Adam, again, thank you so much. Next week, I think we're going to go back to a video episode. I'm not sure which one. We have some in the can that need to get out. So next week is Thanksgiving, and I know everybody's busy, but we'll get you a good one. So until then, guys, thank you all for being here. Remember, here at the Boots and Whiskey Podcast, it's all about real people, real stories, real country. Until next time, guys, keep those boots on the ground and the whiskey in the glass. Be good to each other. Cheers.